All right, so welcome back to another episode of the Just Listen to Jack podcast. And with me today, I have a very special guest. No, it's not Lola. It is one of my amazing, beautiful friends, Chloe Tatro. Say hi to Chloe.
Hi.
And of course, as you can see, she is. You can see she's a style icon. What's funny about me and Chloe, our first meeting each other, we met under some really strange circumstances. Mm-hmm. We actually met at an event for a medium, and we just kind of got introduced really briefly, and we...
You were running the show that day, huh?
I always run the show,
You're
baby.
always running
I always running the show. You know this. I'm always running the show.
Yeah.
And we actually bonded over our love of fashion. Mm-hmm. What was your experience like with first meeting me? Many moons ago.
I had heard about you.
Yeah.
And David, actually, a few times before. And I was very curious because, I'm like, I feel like I might like these people.
Yeah.
They sound interesting and fun. And so I was really excited to meet you guys. But it was during an event and it was busy. And so then I was like, are they nice? I don't know. Like, you're so
I know, like you said, it was just like a weird situation to be in, to meet somebody.
Yeah. And we were all actually kind of helping out and doing our thing.
Yeah.
Oh, you were doing makeup. And yeah. So it was, but I feel like after that, it was just kind of, we hit the ground running.
Yeah, we definitely did. We, and by hitting the ground running, Chloe was crazy enough to allow me to get into her closet.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, and there's actual footage of this.
Is. I might insert some of that, even though I look fat as hell in it. I might insert it.
No, I was not wearing the most flattering outfit.
And you had longer hair.
I did.
I'm loving this bob.
I did.
I freaking love a good bob.
Yeah.
And when I first met, your hair was longer.
Yeah.
And Chloe is very, cautious to change. She kind of knows, like, she knew, like, what she liked and what she didn't like. And one of the things she definitely had figured out was her hair. Don't fuck with her hair.
It was my thing. It was my thing.
It was her thing. She focused on it. She can be a little bit flexible more with fashion and makeup, but with the hair, it was like, I like my long hair. It took me this long to do. Like, it's not being touched. It's like off the table.
It's my thing.
Yes.
That's what I said. Don't bring it up.
Don't even bring it up. Okay. So like this had like a good year passed before it was even.
Well, what happened, remember, is Jennifer Lawrence cut her hair.
That's right.
And I was so in love with her haircut.
Yeah.
I remember the day I sent it to you, like the picture, and I said, I think I might want to do this. I must have gotten like 40,000 text messages of like different bob haircuts and different examples. And
I was going on pulling together a whole campaign.
You did.
Because she just the thought of it and just the fact that she even sent me an inspirational picture.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I'm in. I'm in. So I went full on campaign for her.
Tell about the wigs.
Yes. Like I was convinced on getting her to cut her hair. But she's very, she needs to go through the process. She needs to.
I'm a visual person.
Yeah, you're a visual person. It's like, I don't know, and this and that. So I said, okay, why don't we go try on some wigs? We'll try on some wigs. And I think during this time, I was also trying to convince her to maybe go darker on her hair.
You were. And I immediately, more than I didn't want to cut my hair, I did not want dark hair.
She did not want dark hair. It was just like, just the thought of it just gave her anxiety to even think of her hair being dark. So we did go on try some wigs. We went to a wig shop and she had to buy like some cap or something, right?
Yes, a nylon cap to put on my hair.
And so we started trying on different wigs, and to be honest, they weren't the best quality wigs.
I literally started crying.
Yeah.
We walked out And I literally started crying.
She did. That was probably the worst thing that we can do and try to sell her on short hair. Because I did make her try on like this short, dark wig.
Wasn't it a mullet?
It was like a mullet. It was a little bit longer in the back, and it was short. I didn't know whether she had put it on right, whether the front was the front, the back. And it literally, if I think at some point we did have pictures of it.
Yeah, we did. And
I don't have them. Do you have the pictures?
I don't think so.
But it was like the most horrific, traumatizing experience I think that Chloe's ever been through, because the look on her face was sheer terror, and her nonverbal commands were telling me to get it off of her.
Well, and you can share what you actually said, right? You said, you look like someone just put a pile of shit on top of your head.
Yes, it was like, get it off of me. I can't stand it being on me. It was like, yeah, that wasn't the best strategy to get her.
We took it off. I walked outside and cried, and I was like, I don't think I'm gonna cut my hair.
She literally did. I don't even think, like, you were so not in the mood that day. You weren't even wearing no makeup.
No, I wasn't.
It was like, so when she put this short dark wig on, she was like, I look like a boy. I do. I was like, oh. I said, okay, well, like, hey, we tried, right? And at least I gave it to her props that she at least was open to trying it.
Yeah.
But it's been pretty much when she actually did get the haircut, and I think that when you went to get it, your stylist didn't even want to do it.
She actually didn't do it because I had bangs at the time, and she wanted me, the cut I wanted, it was a little bit longer, and she wanted me to grow them out because I had gotten up the guts to do it, and I was like, no, now I have to wait another 6 weeks, I think it was.
Right.
And I had to hold it. You kept your campaign going.
I did. I was sending her.
Weeks.
I was sending her Pinterest, and I was sending her pictures, and I started telling her how amazing it would look with her beautiful neck.
Oh,
and
that's
then
right.
because you had never had your hair short, and maybe when you were a little girl, maybe it was short.
Yeah, I'd had it short before, but I'd had a traumatic short haircut in college. And so, yeah, and I went to Supercuts, and I wanted layers, and it was like one layer across the back of my head, and I was just like, never again. Yeah, so I grew out my hair, and that was it.
Yeah, but this is funny that we bring up this story, but this is like one of the first steps in kind of the transformation process. Would you agree? Because that was like you
wouldn't even recognize me years ago.
Yeah, the color you had like and I think I remember telling you like your color is so nondescript blonde. It's not too light, it's not too dark, it doesn't and I was just like pretty much like, okay, I was like, I gotta seal the deal on this one, because I was like, for me, all my friends will tell you, I give a lot of unsolicited advice, but of course it's always from a place of love.
It's one of my favorite things about you.
Yeah, it's like, it's unsolicited for sure, but I just like, I always see, because I'm a visual person too, and I see a lot of potential, like if I see something, I'm like, okay, like I'm not going to rest until I can see like this makeup on this person, or this dress, or like this hairstyle or something, because I just like, because I always reference celebrities or movie stars or singers, and I'm like, and then when we're talking about Jennifer Lawrence, I'm like, oh God, yeah, like you guys have such similar, colorings, like I think hers was platinum, wasn't it?
No,
it wasn't.
But she has olive skin. She's more olive complected. So
yeah.
But I like Twiggy was one
Twiggy,
of the other.
that's it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
My mom used to call me Twiggy when I was a kid.
And we both are like really into the 1920s and 30s and like flappers, and I mean, she's like all about that stuff, but like none of what she was inspired by wasn't really reflected in her clothing or her look. Even though we always talk a lot about past lives, we're all into all that shit, and none of that was reflecting it. So I was just
in my bootcut jeans and my
bootcut jeans,
sequin top.
What was my nickname for you? What?
Oh, flowy Chloe.
Flowy Chloe. She was very flowy.
I like my flowy
She
tops.
was very baby doll tops.
Mm-hmm.
I said, and I remember telling her, I said, "Girl, I was like, people are they're gonna wonder are you how many months along are you, or what are you hiding under there?"
Uh-huh.
You know, they were very pure waist.
Oh, I wouldn't even wear leggings. Like, remember, I would have been horrified however many years ago to wear this outfit. I would have been horrified.
Yeah. It was, but I mean, she was always interested in fashion and being artistic, but it was, you know, it didn't quite land until like after you cut your hair.
Yeah. I would say that was definitely one of the first.
Yeah.
Because I didn't go platinum until after I cut my hair. Because I kept going shorter.
Right.
Shorter and shorter with my pixie, and then it got to the point where she couldn't weave it with the foils, and she's like, I'm gonna have to just put the color on. I said, perfect, because I've wanted to be platinum my whole life, and I did. I just never, I don't think I ever had the guts to do it until that moment.
Yeah.
There was no going back.
There wasn't. Here we are now.
Here we are.
And you know what? I got to give it to Chloe because she is dedicated to the upkeep. You ain't gonna see her roots out to down here. That wouldn't happen. It just like she is very dedicated. If she's gonna do a look, she's gonna upkeep the look. She's gonna get a trim every 4 weeks.
I go every 4 weeks. I would stop eating before I stopped bleaching my hair.
That's right.
I even tell my friends one of my top 5 favorite things is bleaching my hair, and that is the truth.
Yeah, that just gets you off on getting your roots done,
thing.
huh? Getting them roots touched up, huh?
I'm just getting a fresh haircut, getting your hair washed, getting it bleached. It's my favorite thing.
And that's the thing that I love about Chloe is that she understands the importance in self-care and like doing things for yourself. And, you know, with all of that said, you're wondering what they could be talking about today.
I know, they're like, God, stop talking about haircuts.
I know. So today's podcast is not about hair, but it is about this amazing artwork that you see behind us here. And I wanted to bring Chloe on because, you know, this artwork came about. You know, we did talk about the haircut, but it's kind of an extension of, you know, getting reconnected with yourself and being creative. And so I just thought it would be so amazing to bring you on in order to share your artwork with all of us, but be able to like talk to us about the stories behind this and kind of like, you know, the journey in bringing you to this moment where you're like expressing yourself through your artwork.
Was I even painting yet when we first met? Do you remember?
I don't think so. No, I think it was you had an idea of the extra room in your home to be a studio, but I think you were doing like little projects like decoupaging and stuff like that, but not painting at the time.
Do you want me to tell the story of how I actually got started?
Absolutely.
Because and actually what's really funny, and I think about this often, especially when people ask me about, you know, why an artist, or I read something once, and it was an article, and the person talked about thinking back to your earliest memories as a child and what do you remember wanting to do most, you know? And I remember actually from a very young age wanting to be an artist. I wanted to be a movie star and an artist, but an artist first. And I thought how true that is. And they were talking about how in this article, as children, we come into this lifetime, and before society shapes and molds us, before our parents shape and mold us with their ideas of what we should and could be, and what society tells us our talents are, what we should and could be, and what we can make money at, and what we would thrive at and what we won't, and that's, you know, that's for losers or whatever, you know. Before we have all of those filters placed over our eyes, as children, I mean, you think about children being so pure, and they come in closer to spirit and closer to the divine than I think we are as adults, because we've gone through life and
we're in our purest form as children.
Yes. And so as children, we kind of, I think, know what our purpose is when we come into this lifetime. And I remember from a very young age, I wanted to be an artist. And I would also tell stories. I remember I loved books, and so I would sit with my grandfather and open the books but make up my own stories to all the pages. And he's like, that's not what you're supposed. He's a science teacher.
Yeah.
He's like, that's not what you're supposed to do. And I was like, I'm telling my own story.
Yeah.
And I work as a professional writer now.
Yeah.
So I'm an artist and a writer. It's really interesting.
Yes. Yeah.
So, see, tangents. Okay, so how I got started, because I never, growing up, I was really into academics. I was told from a very young age by my mom, you're going to have to put yourself through school. Like, I'm not going to be able to do it. And so I knew I had to work really hard at school and sports and everything. That's having that, all the proper academics and the proper amount of athletics or activities and things like that was important to get into colleges and getting scholarships. And so I really focused on athletics and academics growing up, and I didn't ever do much art or creative projects. And it wasn't until, I guess it's 6 years ago now, when I met Michelle, my friend, who is a psychic medium. That's how we met. And it was my first reading with her, aside from, I guess it was my first private reading, because I met her at a group debut, and she was just getting started in her career. So my grandmother's spirit, my mom's mom, kept coming through in this reading, and she just kept talking about painting, and I needed to paint. You need to paint, you need to paint. And I was like, why the hell would I paint? Yeah. I'm a shitty painter. Like, I tried my hand at it like 2 years before. I had this notion, kept coming to my head, like, I gotta paint. Yeah. And I was like, I'm the worst artist ever. Like, I don't know shit about art. I don't know how to paint. I don't know how to do any of this. I painted with a butter knife.
Oh,
because I love texture. I love Van Gogh. Yeah. And so I still have that butter knife, actually, to this day.
Okay.
And I just experimented with it, and I was like, I'm terrible. So I put the paints away, and I never, did it again for a few years. But my grandmother's spirit kept coming through, talking about needing to paint. And I just thought it was the strangest thing. And I didn't pay much attention to it. And some time went by, and I met Francisco, who was just on recently in your podcast talking about spirituality. Yes. He is one of my greatest mentors and teachers, and so wise. And I think it was maybe the first time that I met him. I think it was the first time, maybe not long after. He looked at me one day, he's like, aren't you supposed to be painting? And I was all,
damn it,
what the hell? Why do you keep saying that? And then my friend Jill said the same thing one day, and I showed her some of the stuff. I bought some cheap canvases from Michael's, I think, and some cheap paints, and I just started practicing.
50% off one item,
right?
Yeah.
And so I did, and my friend Jill one day, she was like, because I would just make paintings for people and give them to them. I'm like, here, take it, here's a present, and they were probably like, why are you giving me this awful thing, So,
or at least you thought.
Everyone was nice to me about it, but I don't know. Anyway, so my friend Jill one day was like, I think there's something here. You need to actually really focus on it. So that's why I cleared out that second bedroom that was in my house. It was a storage room before, and turned it into a little studio, and I just got really serious about it. I think I just completely threw myself into it, and it became such an avenue for not only creative expression, but, healing. I started really kind of diving into healing through painting, just expressing myself that way. And, I would come home from work, and all I wanted to do was paint. I didn't go out. I didn't really, unless I maybe sometimes saw people, but I didn't go out. I didn't do anything. I didn't socialize. All I wanted to do was paint. I'd get up in the middle of the night and paint. I would paint till 9 o'clock at night, not eat dinner. Like, that's all I wanted to do for just years. Years. That's what I've done.
And she just started churning them out. And the most amazing thing about being able to witness this, reconnection with your true self, because we always talk about, the things that, we're not, I haven't changed, or this isn't something new. This has always been a part of me in some capacity, and it's just coming to the surface, but it's always been there. So to see you throw yourself into your artwork, and, you being your biggest critic. I can relate to that, just being very critical of myself and, our talents and our abilities. It's like you immediately think, oh, well, I'm just painting, but I'm not a painter. And I kind of had the similar thing too, with my artwork, where I was just like, oh, well, this is just something I do, but I'm not an artist. But I back in, like, I don't even know when it was, 92, 93, I remember the movie Sister Act, and Whoopi Goldberg's character in that was talking to one of her students, because she was a teacher at the school, and she's like, I love singing and all of this. One of the girls, she wanted to be a singer, but her family didn't approve of it. And she gave her a book, or told her to read a book called Letters to a Poet. And it's like this guy who is writing to this poet and telling them, like, oh, all I can think about is writing poetry, and, like, I get up, like you were saying, I get up, I come home from work, all I want to do is write. And he goes, how do I become a poet? And the poet wrote back to him and said, if all you can think about is writing poetry, he goes, then you're a poet. You don't need anyone's permission. You know what I mean? And so I always think about that, because you don't need anybody's permission. You don't need anybody to validate you, to say that you're an artist, or you're a painter, or you're a writer. I mean, for you, you're both. And it's like the moment that you own that, and you say, like, because there is a moment you're like, oh, I was just painting. I was just like, oh, here's the painting I did, or whatever. And it's like, until the moment that you said, like, like you said very confidently, I'm a writer, But I think it was easier for you to do that because you went to school, you have a degree, you do it for a living. So you're like, well, I'm a writer.
Yeah.
Like, you've been validated in a sense.
Yes.
But the art part of it, it's like, you didn't go to art school.
Right.
You didn't, you didn't go take any classes. You just, like, bought some canvases and some paint and went at it. But that doesn't mean that you're not a painter.
Oh, yeah. Calling myself an artist was one of the hardest things that I think it took me years too. And I remember, I remember the first moment I said it. I went by myself to Santa Fe a couple years ago because it's an art hub. And I was honestly just exhausted. I needed to take a break. It was the week before Christmas, and I just went on a solo trip by myself. I just wanted to get the hell out and go chill and see some art and get inspired. I was feeling very uninspired. And I think I met someone there. I was traveling by yourself. That was another thing. It forced me to get out of my comfort zone and talk to people. I'm not a very social person. And so that was another way for me to challenge myself. And I think I told, like, someone asked, and I said, oh, I'm an artist. And it was the first time I ever said it. And I couldn't, it was weird. It was almost like I was speaking a foreign language at first. But I think I had just had my first show earlier that year. Gosh, how many years? I don't even remember. I think I've done a few small scale murals, like wings on a wall and a big heart. And so I think maybe I had to go big to validate to myself that
you're an artist.
That I was an artist.
But it came at such a non-eventful moment where you embraced it. Yeah. It was like you were just in a foreign place amongst foreign people or people that you don't know, and you just owned it.
Maybe that's why. Maybe it was because I'm like, well, these people maybe they'll never see me again. I'll never see them, so who cares?
Yeah, I'm Judy for tonight.
I know.
I'm Judy, the artist.
Judy?
Yeah. This came into my mind.
That's your go-to name?
Yeah, it's Judy. You know what it is?
Lola.
Because I have a friend, and he always says, he always references, if you have a really good girlfriend, you call her your good Judy.
Your good Judy?
Yeah.
Oh, I haven't heard that.
So it means like she's your real good friend, so she's your good Judy.
Okay.
So I think that's where it came from.
I'm into it. I'll take it.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. You too.
So as you're, embracing and accepting being an artist, did you feel a shift at that point? Did you feel like there was any shift in your mind or in your perspective on art?
Yes, because I think I actually even told told some of my closest friends, like, oh my gosh, I called myself an artist for the first time, and I meant it. I meant it.
Awesome.
Yeah. And I actually, I was carrying, I had a show, because I was carrying with me just some little postcards, and I think they had the Rapture Angel in white on the back, and I remember I gave it to this fantastic couple. I was sitting at a community table in a restaurant in Santa Fe, because that's where the singles, there was room there. But there's this couple this fascinating couple that I got to sit with, and she was also a watercolor artist, but I remember giving them the postcard, and I had my photo on one side and my artist website and a painting on the back. But I remember she paid me such a compliment. She just was like, this is so beautiful, and I want to paint you. She loved my photograph. So it was really cool. Yeah, it was a really cool experience, and I was glad that I had put myself out there and was open to connecting with people I had never met before.
Yeah. So you as Judy sparked up a conversation with a stranger. That's awesome. So let's talk about like the creative process, because that's the thing that's always most interesting to me, is like the creative process, and what gets you started. Now, I remember when you first, like one of the first things that you were inspired by, and your first inspirational work, I believe, was the angel wings. So talk to me about that.
I have loved angels my whole life. I have felt very connected to angels. I always felt like I should have a set of wings. So I don't exactly know why. I just felt compelled, I guess, to choose angels as the figure or the form to focus on. And I also know that angels are a very healing symbol for a lot of people. You know, I grew up Catholic, and they talk about angels a lot in the Bible and in Catholicism, but I know that they extend beyond Catholicism and Christianity, and they're kind of, in my mind, a universal symbol of, depending on what kind of angels, right? But peace and love and healing and the connection to the divine. Exactly. Really the connection to the divine. And so I think maybe I chose that as a way because I was also embarking on my own healing journey and really talking to my angels a lot, and just, I don't know, it just kind of came through my soul. I will say that when I paint, it's really the only time that I get out of my head completely. I paint from right here. This is where the energy comes from. And I am, as you know, in my head a lot. And there's a lot going on up there. There's a lot. You've witnessed it every time you hang out with me.
I mean, there's so much going on there that she's got to release a little bit of valve. So release some of what's going on there. So she does have a lot of side conversations with herself.
With myself.
Yeah, to let a little bit of information out. So it's okay. So
you do a pretty good impression.
I said, she's just, she's just releasing right now. Okay, just go with it. Okay, just go with it.
It's so true.
Yeah.
So yeah, when I paint, I'm able to completely set that aside, and it just comes through me almost like a vessel or a channel. And so sometimes I'll even step away from the piece, and I'm like, how did I do that? Or what just happened? I don't even know if I remember the whole process.
I have a question for you, because on this podcast, talk about a lot about the higher self and like connecting. Let me ask you, do you, when when you're doing your artwork and you kind of talk about channeling and stuff, do you feel like you're connecting with your higher self, or that you're coming into some sort of state when you're in it, when you're creating, when you're painting, when you're writing, in the zone?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I would say absolutely I connect with my higher self. I'm also I'm an empath, and so I'm actually also able to channel other spirits and other energies living living, people who are alive, when I paint for them, every time I paint for someone, I tap into.
Yeah.
And it took me a while to realize that I was
That's
doing that. I did not
interesting.
know it at first. I did not know I was on the ground sobbing, feeling horrible depression, or, just I was going through this gamut of emotions when I've painted for other people. I didn't understand what was going on. It took me a while to figure it out that it wasn't mine, because it felt like mine. It felt like exactly, but that's what makes me, I think, gives me the ability to more effectively create a piece that means something more to that
personal.
person. It was very personal because I was walking their path with them.
Right.
So I'm able to connect with the living and those who have crossed over. I've painted pieces in memory of people who've crossed over. I've gotten messages. I've been able to, put in the paint, but also give the messages to the people I've painted for that commission the work. I've channeled dogs, like pets, beloved pets who have crossed over. So I and the angels, I've, other artists or musicians, music. I mean, I like to say that, yes, I'm an abstract artist, but, excuse me.
You need some wine.
Yeah. How did you know? See, my throat's like,
I know.
I'm drying up. She needs
It's not
more.
the kind of parch that you need water for. It's her parch needed some little vino.
I have wine running through my veins.
Yeah. And if you're wondering what we're drinking, I'm drinking some really sweet sparkling wine that Chloe brought that she refused to drink.
I took one sip and I was like, nope, we're leaving.
She's kind of bougie when it comes to wine. Just saying. But proceed.
Oh my gosh, what was I? Oh yeah, channeling.
Yeah.
Yes, so higher, but I'm able to connect with the angels and and music and colors. So I'm able to paint the energy behind things, and that's what and that's why I like to say I'm an abstract artist, but really what it is I paint the energy behind things. And so the pieces that we're actually showing this evening, I haven't come up with an official title for this series yet, but I call it word art. It's literally words, song lyrics painted onto the canvas over and over to create a piece, the pieces that you see. It's actual words.
Yeah.
But also the energy and the movement behind the song, the
That's
colors.
what I found most fascinating.
I get visions.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll get actual visions. Other times I'll feel. It's almost like a vision through my heart center, if that makes any sense. But it's how I work. So I'll feel the colors. I'll feel the movement of the music, and or maybe it's a poem or something. That would be interesting. I actually haven't, but I paint popular music right now, or music that means something to me.
You,
but I've also recently started writing my own poetry and just thoughts, and I think that will eventually make its way to the canvas, which could be really scary. I have no idea.
I will definitely
It'd be very intense.
Yeah, be waiting for that. And you know what I always found the most interesting about your paintings is that, and I'm going to put you on blast here like I do to all my guests, is that Chloe is very structured. She's very she's got her routines in place. She's very much colors in the lines. So what I found most interesting about your painting is it's so free, it's so expressive, it's not structured. And I would be like, well, I asked her recently, say, what is your process when you're doing something? Because naturally I would think that Chloe is going to map things out. She's going to have this whole, setup going on before she even puts paint to canvas. Brush to canvas. She's gonna have this whole thing. That was my idea what your process, and you had told me that at first when you started painting, that was very much the process.
That was.
So how did that come about? How did you come into this?
I started
to this process.
Drinking while painting.
Okay. Okay.
I really had to get out of my head. You're right. I am so methodical. I'm also a perfectionist. I'm very critical.
And a backseat driver.
The 41 freeway.
Yeah, we're there. Okay.
Fresno residents will know.
Yeah.
I am. I'm so methodical and such a perfectionist, but I found that operating that way when I was trying to paint took the joy out of it for me.
Yeah.
It really took out the freedom of expression. And I also discovered that no matter how hard I tried to make a painting what I wanted it to be, the painting always became what it wanted to become.
I love that.
It was never about me. And so and maybe that's why I just kept doing it over and over and over again until I could get out the...
Right. Because you be having, some of your paintings had layers and layers.
They
and
all
layers.
do still, but now it's just layers of chaos. It's
Yeah.
like mass chaos, and I love it. You know, it's so freeing. But the painting, it never turned out the way I wanted. And so when I finally realized it's because it was always supposed to be what it wanted to be. When I finally realized that, it was really liberating.
Yeah.
It's kind of like dealing with
Just
people
finally
too, right? Like
surrendered, huh?
I surrendered completely to
Yeah.
the painting, and I would even start asking the paintings, tell me what you want your name to be, you know? And sometimes it would come right away, and other times it took a while, and that's still how I operate. And I still have kind of a routine when I paint where I'll get it to a point where I feel I have nothing left to give it. I have no energy left. I have no vision. I have no ideas. And so I'll pull it out of the room and I'll sit with it. I might put it in my bedroom where I can wake up to it. I might set it in my den where I'm watching television and I can look over and sneer at it. If you're awful. You know, I've done that before and haul it right back in because maybe it just takes a different lighting or different perspective and I see a few things. But if I sit with it for over a week, maybe sometimes two, and I have no ideas, nothing else comes to me, then I know it's done and I'll sign it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And you've just accepted that that's the process.
Yeah.
And, you know, the interesting thing is like we have processes that, you know, we do, you know, like our art or, you know, when we cook or when we clean, you know, we kind of go through this process. What have you learned from your paintings about like the process of life and like your journey? Because I always ask my guests about the journey because it's something that I'm really passionate about is the journey. What did you learn through your art journey about your personal journey?
That imperfection is perfection.
Love that.
There is so much more beauty and interest in imperfection and in the layers that make up the painting and the layers of who we are, right? Yeah. We are layers and layers and layers of life experiences and thoughts and vision and feelings and education or travels. We are layers upon layers, just like paintings.
So true.
And it is our imperfections that make us beautiful and unique and just marvelous beings. And I never, ever thought that before I started painting because I was such a perfectionist. I was always so focused on being perfect. Perfect hair,
right.
Perfect body, perfect makeup, perfect everything, perfect speech, everything. And I still do it. You can probably see in the way that I talk how I filter, and then it comes out.
Can I just say that I'm always terrified to send you a text message because Chloe she has everything she does is grammatically correct. The spelling, and if she ever in the rare occasion makes a mistake, she will correct herself immediately.
With an asterisk?
Yes, with an asterisk on it. This is for this line, paragraph 3. 2 words, you know, like she is very, and so knowing that you're, you know, I'm just so happy and amazed to see how much you've loosened up and that you've surrendered to like a lot of things that you were just always fighting or that you just were like, you know, like I have to be very perfect and structured about this. And if this doesn't work out, you know, like you would, you know, it would throw you off. And I feel like you have, you know, personally grown so much by just surrendering, you know, not only to your work, which it shows you're just, and can I just kind of tell them about your process? Like when you're painting, like you don't paint on an easel. She paints on the floor. Like she's like when she says I'm gonna get in this painting, she's literally like on top of that painting, on the floor, on her knees, hovering over it. You know, so it's just like your process is very unstructured.
It's raw.
Yeah,
it's very raw.
Her paints are on the floor. I mean, it's like very like if you look at the rest of her house and her bedroom, you know, there's a lot of, you know, it's very put together. It's very there's a place for everything and everything is placed. But when you go in your art room, it is completely, there's no rhyme or reason to anything.
Hurricane Chloe.
Yes.
I have a substitute art room right now because my actual art room, and I have a table, a drafting table that someone gave me that I love. I'm either painting on the floor or on a table when I need something a little higher up and I could tilt it, but I have to redo the electrical. And the room that you...
Yeah, but
There's
I mean,
footprints,
but that's what I love. Yeah, she got
all
the dogs around her. She, she just paints everywhere, cloths, brushes. I'm just like, who is this?
Just walk
Whose
by
room is this? And like, because you go to hers and it's like a place for everything, and everything is placed. And
antiques or
yes, and like there's a napkin for this. Oh, do you need a coaster for that? You know, so it's just, but it makes me so happy to see that because I know that you've completely surrendered to it. Like this is like, I'm sure you've tried everything. You tried painting on an easel.
I did.
Yeah, like
got rid of it.
You've had your paints organized and all of this, and you were very clean and were so concerned about things getting paint on them or whatever. Now it's like you just like, this is my process. As chaotic as it is, this is the process, and this is something that we talk about. You know, chaos. We typically associate it with something negative, but you know, in the chaos of your paint, you know, your art room, you're producing beauty, you know, and that's what I find so awesome about, you know, like you just associate chaos like, oh, you know, because your life, you know, your life appears to be very put together, but then like out of the chaos of your art studio, your art room, you're like producing this, which has so much movement, so much energy. Like when you told me that, like that you're painting the energy, I totally got it. Like at first thought, you're like, okay, you're painting with energy, but like when you told me, I was like, I completely get it. Like I said, that's the way you should explain it to everyone, what you're painting. Like you're just painting the energy of what your subject is.
And I love that we're talking about chaos because it takes me back to a conversation, actually, because talking about art, Francisco and I were talking about this years ago, and he said to me, you know, chaos and creativity are the same energy. Yeah. It's just one is directed and the other is not. And that is so like, that's so my work, right? It's all directed. So it's harnessing all of that. And there is a lot of chaos in my mind and in my feelings, feeling everything around me, you know, and art has been my saving grace in so many ways. And one of them has been learning how to harness the chaos around me, everyday life, what I'm feeling and picking up from others and my own life and my healing and everything from my past, and learning how to hone it and put it somewhere and turn it into something beautiful. And that's ultimately my goal with art, is to turn my experiences, traumas, the things in this world, not just my own, but on a global scale, the things that are not as pleasant, the things that are ugly, the things that are frustrating, but turn them into something beautiful. Make some beauty out of the madness. You know?
I love that. And, you know, without getting too personal, you know, I want to ask you, how has your artwork helped in your healing process? What has it allowed you to do with your healing?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I mean, if I'm being perfectly honest, it saved my life. It saved my life.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, for a lot of years, I struggled a lot with my emotions, my depression, and not knowing how to process everything that I was feeling and everything I had experienced in my life, the different abuses, the traumas, and I was just stuffing it away and compartmentalizing it, like we talk about, organize and put away, and it's, and what was happening is it was eating me away inside, and it was really at a point where if I didn't have an outlet, if I didn't have a way to start processing it, it would not have ended well for me. And art has really helped it. I like to say this a lot. Art has given me a voice I didn't know how to use words for. I can say things with paint and color and movement that I could not use words for.
Yeah.
And also, unfortunately for me, in my upbringing, I was raised to believe that emotions are weakness and you should never show them and you should never share them.
Yeah.
And so paint became a safe way for me to express how I was feeling. And people wouldn't always necessarily know what I was exactly saying, at least when I started, you know. Now as I have gotten so much further on my journey, I'm okay with talking about it a lot and using my words.
Right.
And now I'm starting to write. But I mean, I wouldn't even, as a writer, it's kind of crazy to think I wouldn't even journal. I would never write my most private thoughts or feelings down because I couldn't risk anyone finding them and reading them and judging what I was thinking or feeling or going through. But paint, that's entirely up to interpretation, right?
Exactly. And like I like how you said that that the paints were a form of expressing your emotions and being able to get them out onto the canvas, and then that transformed into verbalizing them and being able to speak about them. Like, that's just such a beautiful and cathartic thing, because had you not had that, had you not had your art to be able to get that out, so when you say that, it literally saved your life.
Literally saved my life. Yeah. And so the pieces these are just some of my examples of word art, but I chose other people's words, but I started using words and paint together. It was an evolution. It was an evolution.
Marrying two of your talents together, because Chloe is an amazing writer, and she just thought that it was like marrying the structured part of you with the expressive artistic side of you, because you're able to, I think it was like the evolution was so calculated. It appears calculated, but it happens so naturally. You know what I mean? So why don't you explain let's explain these two art pieces that you brought today.
Yeah, these are some of my favorite pieces, and it's probably because of the colors as well, but I know you wouldn't know that I actually love color because I usually wear black.
I know.
This is Cheap Thrills, and this is actually the song Cheap Thrills by Sia. These are it's lyrics from the song I Love Cheap Thrills, and because I do love cheap thrills.
Like cheap thrill.
I like cheap thrills.
You like yourself a ground beef.
I do love ground beef tacos.
Now that's what I call a cheap thrill.
I love
it. Tastes good in the moment, but it might give you diarrhea later.
So gross. I don't need a lot of people call me bougie yes, but I actually be just perfectly happy drinking a 40 girl in a parking lot. I am from Madera. I'm from Madera.
From Madirty.
Yeah. So this was actually a fun piece in the middle of a lot of healing word art I was doing. That some of my pieces are definitely much darker, but I thought it would be fun to paint Cheap Thrills because I love that song. I love the message behind it, and it's true for me. And that's this is one of my earlier word art pieces, and it just I actually do have this process of this piece photographed.
Oh, okay.
I do.
Awesome.
I have to go back, but I have some, so you could actually
We'll
see
definitely
how
put
the
those
layers
in.
of the lyrics were built. And I
Yeah.
even rotated this particular canvas. I rotated, which I will do sometimes with the word art. It's not in one direction. I will paint the words in different directions. And so that's how you see different movement. I don't clean my brushes in between because I love when colors mix together.
I love this. Like this.
Yeah, you'll see a lot of rainbow sort of effects, and it's just something it's messy, right? It's chaos, and that's what I love. It's very raw, and at my core, I am very raw. So
She is. She can be very raw.
so this is Cheap Thrills, and then the piece behind me. So I'm a huge Doors fan. I actually love classic rock a lot. That's all I listened to when I was
Tell
a
me what the
young
name
teen.
of your dog is.
Hendrix.
Yes.
I know. So my new
Yes.
pup is Hendrix after the great Jimi Hendrix. Everyone thinks I named him after the gin, and I'm like, well, I mean, I freaking love Hendrix gin. It's my favorite gin, but I named him after the artist.
Yeah.
So I'm a huge classic rock fan, and the Doors, they've always been my favorite band. And even I used to have like Jim Morrison posters up all over my room and quotes and things like that from the Doors. My mom was probably like, wow, where did this kid come from?
Yeah.
It was just because I saw the Doors movie, and that was it for me with Val Kilmer. Oh my God. Yeah. So anyways, this piece behind me is one of my favorite Doors songs, and this is Wild Child.
Yes.
And so the lyrics built into this are wild child full of grace, savior of the human race. And I also, with this particular motif, I started with a base of kind of a sun and a desert. Like you see the winds sweeping across the desert. I became really obsessed with the desert too, because after I went to Santa Fe, and I love the desert. It's so beautiful. And Georgia O'Keeffe is one of my favorite artists.
I get that now because of like, you think of the colors of in Santa Fe, like the mauves, turquoises.
Yes.
You know, like I totally see that.
Yeah, and so that's kind of where it. And Joshua Tree, I went to Joshua Tree by myself for, on a little trip as well, and I was feeling really inspired by the desert, and so that's kind of when this piece came about. Plus, I love the song Wild Child. I am definitely a wild child at heart, and so I painted the song, and I don't know why I did this symbol, but I did. There's all sorts of interesting, and you'll notice that in my work, weird symbols show up and different things. I don't know why I do them, but I do, and then they just become part of the whole motif.
And it's just like, it has so much movement. I do see the inspiration behind it, and that's the part that, like, even if I didn't know, the story behind it, I would be just really intrigued by just the movement that it has. But like, by
like
you just saying
winds.
the energy, I'm just like, I get it. Like, I totally get it. Now, like, I know that you had done a series of the hearts. Tell me, like, the significance of, like, your series of hearts that you did.
And now you'll see them. It's interesting because they're showing up in all of my paintings and a lot of my word art. So I did a whole series on hearts, and I called it the Emotional Roller Coaster series. And it started, actually, that whole series started when a little teeny baby bird fell out of a nest at my old house, and I found it. I almost stepped on it, and I found it. I heard this squeaking, and it was down by my foot, and it had fallen out of its nest. I didn't know which tree it had fallen out of, and so I went online and I was researching bird rescues, and no one would call me back, and I didn't know what to feed it, and I put it in a little Easter basket, and no one would call me back. And everything I read was that you need to try to put it back, like hang it back up in the tree that it fell from, so its mom can find it. And I was like, I don't know if this is a good idea, but I don't even know what kind of bird this is. It was so young. I didn't know if it ate bugs or seeds or what. Like, I didn't know. And so I hung it in the basket. It's at the highest branch. I got out a big ladder, and I hung it up, and it didn't make it over the night, and I was absolutely devastated. Oh my gosh, I was just for days crushed, devastated. And a friend of mine said, why don't you paint your feeling? Why don't you paint it out? And so I painted this heart on a canvas, and it's the smallest you'll ever see me do, 18 by 24, and now that's even too small for me.
Yeah.
I gotta move. My energy has to move. But
Right.
at the time, this was when I was still fairly new to painting, and I painted this blue and gold heart, and I called it wishful thinking, because I had had so much hope for this little bird, and it gave me the idea to explore this whole series of, like, based on emotions and feelings and what colors those emotions were. And I used the heart because it's kind of the universal symbol of emotions and feelings. And so I started doing just these, like, hearts, a single heart on an 18 by 24 canvas, and just exploring love and anger, like rage and melancholy, and just all these different, emotions I could think of. And those have eventually, of course, became wilder and wilder, and not just a single heart, but multiple hearts, and then a whole canvas, and then it just kept evolving. And now and I stopped doing hearts for a while because I was like, I want to do something else. And I explored the cosmos for a while, and and now I'm doing my word art. The hearts are making their way back in. You'll usually find at least one in most pieces, especially more recently, because I'm in another phase of healing and self-love. And so the hearts always make their way back into the paint. It's interesting.
No, I'm glad that you brought that up, because, I think that's ultimately what we're always searching for on our journey. Is we're searching for self-love, and we're always putting that out there. We're always, talk about, I got to love myself before I can love others. What does that mean to you?
That is the hardest lesson I've ever had to learn, and I'm still working on that.
Yeah.
Still working on it.
We all are.
Mm-hmm.
We all
I
are.
think we're always a work in progress.
Yep.
Self-love, I feel like, probably for most people, is one of the more challenging feats we have to accomplish in life, especially those of us who have backgrounds that are a little more challenging, and revolve around the topic of love or feeling loved. And when you don't have it modeled to you,
Yeah.
it's
and it's so funny that we're always taught to love others very early on. Oh, you gotta love your parents and love your friends, love your family, and love animals. We love animals.
yes.
We have so much love for animals, but like the last thing that we're taught is to like love ourselves.
Yeah.
So like, it's like the hardest lesson, like you said, that we learn, because it's usually the last one that we learn.
So true.
In our capacity to love. It's like it's easier to love somebody else or something else,
because you don't want to be selfish, right?
Yeah.
Like that was, especially when you come from our generation and older, that's, more of the old school thought, like, don't be selfish.
Right. Exactly.
How could you put your needs or above someone else's, or and that's not to say, like, don't obviously put yourself in someone else's shoes, like, learn to see all perspectives, things like that. But you're right, that wasn't a lesson that was emphasized when we were growing up, and I'm sure the generations before who we were raised by,
Exactly. And I always look at this younger generation, I always talk about them, is that like they just are so much more confident and so much more like that advanced than we are. And I'm thinking, they have more body positivity than we did, and like I'm just like, where was that movement when I was growing up?
Oh my gosh, I think that every day. Why didn't I decide to come in with that generation?
Exactly.
What am I doing?
So, it's just really interesting, on our journey, one of the things that we search for on our journey is self-love, and, us, being, adults already, and, we're still searching for that. And it's always, something that we're trying to achieve.
Mm-hmm.
So that's awesome. That's awesome. How has that, having more self-love for yourself, how has that inspired your artwork? Is it part of the next evolution? Are we talking about
that is yet to be determined?
Do I see a future inspirational series?
Oh, I think for sure. I mean, even, and I brought a piece here tonight, but even my word art, where I'm at now, it's evolved from what you're seeing here. I mean, it's evolved from that as I'm layering in some of the darker stuff and the lighter stuff over the top, and what I'm going through, even that's changing. And so I think absolutely, and I haven't figured it out yet. I mean, I do know I'm also going to start building things, 3D installations and structures. And oh my God, I got a drill for my birthday.
I know, she's so excited. I've never seen a female so excited about a drill before.
I'm so excited. Because I have this vision of what I want to do and these things that I want to start, and I have no idea what I'm doing. I don't know. I'm just going to go for it though. I went to the art store. I went to Allard's this last weekend, and I had to order stretcher bar because my mom wants, God bless my mom, she always wants a painting for things. So I got to do a painting for her for Mother's Day. But while I was there, I picked up some of the wire that we talked about, the armature, and I went to Home Depot and got some screen.
Look at you.
I'm gonna start working on my first set of wings that I want to build, and I have, like I said, no clue what I'm doing. I even told this gal, I was like, I don't know what I'm doing, but point me to the wire. Like, I'm just gonna figure it out. I don't know what I need. But that's how I approach everything. Typical Aries, like dive right in head first. I don't.
That's how us fire signs do it.
I know. It's just jump in, just figure it out later, which isn't always a good thing.
No, it's not. It's not. But you know what? It's like, you just you got to figure it out. That's like.
I just got to get my hands dirty, and I gotta just. I mean, that's what I did with painting, And so now, as I start to build things and explore that, I'm just gonna wing it. I already have the first 2 sets in my mind of what I want to do and the materials, and then I'll go from there. But it's and who knows how that will transfer back to the canvas.
Exactly.
And painting.
And that's the thing. It's like art is so freeing because it's like there is no structure. There is no, like, you're evolving from the canvas and like going into 3D pieces and just like working with different mediums. It's just like sky's the limit. That's the thing about it that's so freeing, is like you can make art out of anything, and it's subjective. That it's like, I was always comparing myself, and I know we had talked about this before. It's like comparing yourself to other people, and I finally was like, I have my own style. This is how I do it. This is like where I'm at, and I'm not going to I don't need the validation to say like, oh well, I'm not as good as that person, in order for me to be consider myself an artist, or to be considered like that I was doing something that had a style or had, so I just stopped thinking about what other people thought I was. And I think that once you start doing that, it just releases something within you that you're just like, this is like, what the best thing about what I'm doing is that it's me. It's my perspective. It's my style. And that's like that's the best thing about it. Like, it's my voice.
Yeah.
It's my own unique voice, so that's why I don't compare. And like, I don't judge other people's artwork either, because it's not mine.
Yes. That's exactly how I feel too.
I can't judge it. I can't, go in on it, because it's their personal perspective on what their inspiration is. It's their interpretation.
Well, and quite frankly, I'm sure you would agree, it takes a lot of courage to make art. It takes a lot of courage to put that's your soul.
Exactly.
I don't know about you, but I feel like that's my soul. That's my soul.
Yeah.
Everything I do, that's my soul. Yeah. Everything I do, that's not like, oh, I have to do this for work or whatever. And so that takes courage. And so, who are we to judge somebody else putting their soul out there? And it's so unfortunate, because I feel like still, and it's getting better, but we live in a society that oftentimes kind of thrives on shaming others or critiquing and finding fun in faults and flaws. And I've even witnessed conversations where people I know, they're making fun of an artist who messed up on stage, or a musician singing or whatever. And I remember one time I looked at them and I was like, at least they got up there and they tried.
Right.
At least they're trying.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Right.
What are you, like, it takes guts. It's like you're basically, I always compare, especially because I've shown my art publicly a few times. It's like standing in a room naked and asking everyone to cast judgment on you.
Exactly.
Just go ahead.
Yeah.
Cast judgment. And it takes a lot of courage to put yourself out there and to be who you really are.
Yeah.
Whether that's through fashion or art or music, it really it's just, I have so much respect for anyone trying. So I don't walk into a show and go, ugh,
right.
it's awful. It's not for me to judge. It's not for me. I appreciate the work and the effort and the love that goes into every creation.
Yeah, exactly. And I was just looking at it. You're putting beauty out in the world. You can't knock that.
Yeah.
You can't knock it, because somebody's sharing something with the world or with another person that, like you said, comes from their soul, is inspired by people and the energy and the places around them. So I don't ever knock it, and I don't compare, and it's not my place. I mean, like I'm saying, how can you judge something that's so personal? It's just so, like, it's just an odd thing to want to do. But where do you see, like, the future? Like, what do you see for yourself in the future with your artwork?
Well, I mean, I know what I've been told. I'm not going to share that.
Okay. I was like,
I know. I'm friends with a lot of psychic people. But I have a great love of fashion, as you know, and I have a love of art. And maybe one day I'll start exploring how to merge those two things. Yeah. But before then, I'm definitely serious about trying to, and I'm in a place where I think I'm okay with showing my art more and trying to put myself out there a little bit more. So I think for me, I'm going to do that first. And aside from building things and learning how to build and create 3D structures that are art, and kind of I'll never leave the canvas, but explore other avenues aside from the canvas, and also explore ways of maybe putting myself out there a little bit more. I'm working on building up that courage.
What do you want the people, what kind of sense or emotion do you want to invoke in people who see your artwork?
Well, it's entirely personal. My sacred prayer every time I make a piece of art or I show my art, the sacred prayer of my heart is, let the people who are meant to see it, and let the piece speak to them in whatever language they need to hear, in whatever way they understand. Let it touch their soul in such a way that they need, so that it heals them, or it gives them a message that they need to hear or see that day. Every single piece that I create is meant for that. Yeah. It's all meant for the higher purpose of hopefully reaching right inside somebody's soul and just cupping their heart in some way.
Yay. I love that. It's beautiful.
Thanks.
It's really beautiful.
It's the truth. It's the honest truth.
Yeah, and that's so important, that you're just, you're coming from a place of truth and love, and you're just transferring that onto the canvas. It's like you can never do wrong if that's the place that's the place that it comes from. You know what I mean? It's going to always have beauty in it because it's coming from a very pure place, So, yeah, I'm really excited. Like, and we'll insert some pictures and stuff, more of your paintings, because you talked about the different series that you've done. So definitely in this podcast throughout, we'll get to see some more of Chloe's artwork. But I really wanted to thank you so much for sharing your story, sharing, us giving some insight into your journey, and sharing this beautiful artwork with us.
Thank you so much for having me. It's such an honor to be here. I'm so excited that you're pursuing your own passion projects, and I know this is one of them. It's something that you've been wanting to do, and I think it's so wonderful, and I'm so honored to be sitting here doing what we do anyways.
I know.
But now it's for your passion, and how wonderful. I'm so excited and happy to be part of it, even if my rosacea and everything is on display for everyone.
It's just you looked a little blush. That's all it is.
Always, and I put foundation on today to try to cover it.
You look great. You're gonna look great. If not, I'll just put like a blur over your face. Yeah, can you just put one of those the black bars over my eyes and and
blur out?
I'll distort your voice.
Yeah. It's like a shadow. Let's just do that for the whole podcast.
The last one of my friends that I put on it, I told him, okay, I tagged him in an Instagram story post, and I put, and when you tag somebody on Instagram, then they could share it on their story. So I tagged him, and I was like, oh, share this because so that your people can see it too. And he freaking reshares it, and he puts an emoji over his face so you don't know it's him. I'm like, oh gosh.
Oh my gosh, that gives me, that's what you should do for me.
Should I put an emoji over your face the whole time?
Yeah, just put the crayon on top.
How about I just insert Chloe?
Oh my God, the GIF.
Chloe GIF over your face.
You have to work that into this if you can cut into, because you share. It's just it's so perfect. My facial. I have a problem with
not hiding,
not being able to hide everything that I'm thinking or feeling on my face.
Yeah, it's just but the coolest thing about Chloe is that she emotes several emotions at one time.
It's true.
So she can be disgusted, sad, happy, excited, all in one look. She's conveyed all those emotions.
It's so true. It's because of all the chaos. It's all the inner chaos and all these things at once.
It's just like
that. And everyone will know when you insert that into that is my go-to facial expression. And it's the perfect. I'm so happy that you found that. And so Jack will just balm me with it sometime. I'll just be throughout my work day, randomly, and he'll just send it to me, and it just makes my day.
Or she'll be like, "Oh, how's your day going?" I'm like,
and he'll send me.
This is how it's going.
I had to work on my comedic timing at first because I don't know. I'm not very tech. How sad. I work in technology. I am not tech savvy, and you had to teach me how to find the gifts and then how to search for it. And every time I'm like, oh, and then I did the wrong one at first.
I know. But I mean, you can
and then my timing was really off. I inserted the wrong times that made no sense in the conversation.
She's totally gotten better because we have a group chat, and let me tell you, this group chat gets off the chain sometimes.
It's fun.
There's this one meme where it shows, I put it in our group chat, where it says the group chat is lit, and it shows this cat, and he's just typing away on the computer all crazy, and that's I'm like, us. Because that's how our group chat gets. It's
that's
if you don't look at it for an hour, it's like, oh geez, I gotta go.
27. I know.
I'll get my little notification, and it's 27 or 28. I'm like, oh Jesus, I missed out.
And then I'm all, yeah, you should do that. And
I know, they're like,
I'm like,
but
what do I say?
The funny thing about you is that because you're so considerate, you literally will go back and you will address at Jack. Yes, I agree. Frank. Yeah, Frank, you're amazing. David, that sucks. So she will go down and even though it's 20 or 30, conversations later, and she will go and address oh yes, and this to your point, yay Frank. Oh, I can't wait to go see that movie. We got to talk about this one.
Oh God, I know that just brought up us.
Oh my God. Okay, so in our group chat, we were, we just talk about random stuff too. And, Avengers Endgame came out last week. And Frank, who's in our group chat, he, this was on Sunday.
When this happened?
Yeah.
That was yesterday.
So Sunday, huh?
No, yesterday was Tuesday.
Oh, okay. Jesus.
Do you know what day it is?
No, I don't.
Oh my God.
All these back-to-back shootings. I'm like, the days are
this happened
together.
yesterday. It's very, very raw
So
for me.
I guess Frank, because, to Frank's defense, this is the biggest movie of like the entire year. Everybody has seen it regardless of, they're a fan or not. So Frank assumed that Chloe had seen it already.
Even though I had never mentioned.
She never mentioned like, hey, I'm going to the movies, or I'm going to go see this tonight or whatever. But Frank assumed that she had saw it already. So he, in the group chat, released major spoilers about the movie. And
I had just gotten it. Let me preface that with, I had just gotten done trying to fix a sprinkler that Hendrix knocked over, broke. I had tried to dig it out with a shovel. Did not work. I bought the wrong part. So I hammered it in place.
And what did that result in?
And it's fine. I tested it.
Oh.
But then I got caught in the sprinklers because I was checking them. So I was covered, drenched in water. And I walk in and see this chat.
And see the chat. And like, I
saw Frank spoiled.
He spoiled the ending to the movie. And Chloe was like, I haven't seen it. And of course, this isn't a text message, right? So I'm just assuming, okay, like she's a little pissed off about it. But I actually had swung by her house later that evening. And Frank, just so you know, she was boiling. She was boiling, bubbling, stewing.
And I thought, it's okay, Frank.
It's okay, Frank. But really, she was
so mad.
She was pissed off. She was pissed off.
Well, between the sprinkler, the movie, a bug jumped on me when I sat on my bed, and I didn't know if it was a hamburger. I wanted a jalapeno burger, which I got, but then it was cold.
It just wasn't happening for her that day.
It was not. It was not. My
so to support Chloe's her cause, I had to put some links in the group chat to some people who got their asses beat for revealing the plot, the ending to Avengers Endgame, and let Frank know basically that he's lucky he didn't get his ass beat.
I'm gonna find a way to find out what happens with Game of Thrones. And
yeah,
then tell
and
Frank
and
tell Frank before it airs.
Yeah, this is totally a tit for tat moment. I'm all about it.
Yeah.
I'm all about it.
Yeah, you were always the one that says, what is that? Revenge is a dish best served cold.
That's right.
I love it. As we both.
Mm-hmm. Take a sip. Cheers.